Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our reaction to what was a very fun qualifying that sets up quite an interesting race to come tomorrow morning. We'll get into all that and more in just a little bit. Firstly, like and subscribe, they are the rules, you have to do it unfortunately. And also a huge shout out to our members, Dakota, the Joyous James, Ryan Myers and Cinnamon Strudel. Let's get into this though, qualifying. Few notes from FP3 before we get into this. Firstly, Lance Stroll broke down at the end of FP3, and at the start of Q1, his car is still being worked on. He does eventually get out, but misses the majority of the session. Also, all weekend, the Red Bull has looked terrible, but towards the end of FP3 it started to turn around a little bit for Max Verstappen. A lot of FP3 was about finding that right setup for the car. It looks like they've got it now, but it took a long time, and I think they still are very much on the back foot from there. The big thing of this session though is track evolution, and not only this session but of the entire qualifying through until Q3. We've spoken about it a lot already, but this is a very dirty track, very cold as well, so it's real lack of grip for a lot of the drivers, but as they go out there, that racing line is kind of formed and the grip is increased and we get better lap times again and again and again. None more evident than in Q1, where at one point Yuki Tsunoda and Fernando Alonso randomly found themselves in the top 5. So yeah, track evolution, very big at the start of the session. But then we get a few lap times from like the likes of Max Verstappen, whose first lap time goes up to 5th. Charles Leclerc's first lap time goes up to 1st. And with about 2 minutes to go, Max Verstappen goes top of the timesheets as his teammate Sergio Perez is in the drop zone. Now, it's been revealed now that Max made those changes in FP3. Perez didn't. I would like to know why, if that was a Perez choice or a Red Bull choice or whoever choice it was, what was the fault behind it, because Perez is still running the setup that basically hasn't worked all weekend, whereas Verstappen has moved to the one that they found at the end of FP3 that seemed to show some kind of pace for them, and Perez is getting bitten for it for that reason. This is where Lance Stroll goes out on track, but unfortunately can't really set a good time. And as we close Q1, Lance Stroll is last place. 20th, set a lap time, still is last. I mean, realistically, not too surprising, because it seems like this track is the one that you have to build your confidence in, just because of the lack of grip. You know, the tyre temperatures are incredibly low because of how cold it is. You have to have lap after lap to build that confidence until the point where you can go all out. It's not really the type of track where you can just set one lap time and be safe, especially when you're in a car like the Aston, which hasn't been good for quite some time. So Lance Stroll in 20th place. Valtteri Bottas was 19th. He has got a 5-place grid penalty, so he will start from 20th tomorrow. Alex Albon in 18th place. Quite disappointing for him, especially considering Franco Colapinto, his teammate in this session, finished P9. So quite a gap between the Williams teammates yet again here in qualifying 1. Fernando Alonso was in 17th, and then Sergio Perez out in Q1 yet again in 16th place. Very disappointing for Perez, and will build to what could be a very, very difficult race for him tomorrow morning. As we go into Q2 now, it looks to be an incredibly close session. After everyone's first laps, our top 3 was Lewis Hamilton in P1, Oscar Piastri was in P2, 0.001 behind Hamilton, and then Verstappen was in P3, 0.065 behind Hamilton. So very close at the top. But the session has a little bit of a premature end with Franco Colapinto going into the wall. He clipped the corner, went all the way across the track, smashed into the other wall, and then just very slowly rolled down the straight for a little bit. Big crash for him. Thankfully, he was okay. But that did end the session early from there. And then these are the guys we have out of the session. Liam Lawson was 15th place. Now, he pit early. There was some talk from the Sky guys that maybe he was involved in the Colapinto incident. he wasn't. I think he actually pit before Colapinto had anything wrong. So I don't know if there was anything wrong with Lawson's car, or maybe his last lap just wasn't very quick and he just decided to give up on it. But yeah, Lawson down in 15th place. Colapinto will start from 14th. This is his second qualifying crash in a row now. And, when we look back to the moment where he was swapped in for Logan Sargeant, the two reasons they gave were, firstly, he has more chance to score points, which he's already shown is true. But the second reason was that they expected him to crash less. And, maybe he is crashing less than Logan Sargeant did, but I think this is his third major crash now. At least, we saw two big crashes in Brazil for him, one in qualifying, one in the race. Here's another one now. I think there's been at least one crash for the Williams in the last 3 weekends. Of course, Albon had that lap 1 incident with Yuki Tsunoda in Mexico. They both crashed in qualifying for Brazil. Then Colapinto crashed in the race. Albon wasn't even in the race due to the crash. And now Colapinto here crashing in qualifying. A very, very big mechanics bill, a parts bill for the Williams team, who we know struggle anyway. If we go back to the start of the year in Australia, where Sargeant couldn't race because Albon had crashed, they only had one spare chassis. Well, they only had one chassis. They took it off Sargeant's car onto Albon's car. We're looking at that, a team that doesn't have much money, and this isn't going to help. So it'll be interesting to see how they go towards the end of the year, trying to save as much money as they can. Who knows if they could even get through the cost cap with the amount of spare parts that they've been having to bring, because that was a big incident for Colapinto. In 13th place was Zhou. Fantastic performance from Zhou. At one point, it looked like he was going to make it into Q3. I think he just missed out. This was just before some other drivers set lap times, but he was like 11th by 0.0 something. It was like unbelievable. Zhou, who I normally come up here on these qualifying reactions, go Zhou in his typical place of P20. P13 for Zhou. I don't expect him to keep it this time tomorrow, but still, very good performance from him. Magnussen was 12th, Ocon in 11th. Now, I'm not sure if these guys got a bit done over by the yellow flags. I don't think Magnussen got to set a fast lap time at the end. But yeah, I think they're a bit more pace from those two guys. We could possibly see that tomorrow. Then we go into Q3. There's quite a big delay following on from the Colapinto crash, where they're looking over the barrier, clearing all the debris, that kind of thing. But they eventually get the session going. And in this session here, we see quite a few prep laps for a lot of the guys at the start, just trying to get the tyres into the right window. As I said, it's taking place, I think it was about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night in Las Vegas, in the middle of a desert. It's freezing cold out there. Just trying to get those tyres into that performance window. So a few prep laps for guys going out. Lewis Hamilton has a dreadful session. Now, the Mercedes in qualifying trim has been far and away the fastest car this weekend. Throughout the practice sessions, throughout the qualifying sessions, the Mercedes has been the best car over 1 lap pace. This is possibly the best they've looked all year in terms of qualifying pace. And Lewis Hamilton had an awful, awful Q3. So he locks up on his first fast lap and has to pit. At the end of the first laps, he is P10. Yuki Tsunoda was 9th, Leclerc 8th, Hülkenberg 7th, Gasly 6th, Piastri 5th, Norris 4th, Verstappen 3rd, Sainz 2nd, Russell in P1. Then everyone comes into the pits, changes tyres for the last part of qualifying. Both Russell and Gasly had little taps with the wall, but both of them seemed to be okay. Thankfully, Gasly was okay. He's currently trying to get that record of 0 crash damage across an entire season, which has never, ever been done before. But yeah, that was a close call for him maybe there. And then as we go on to those fast laps, the checkered flag comes out. Lewis Hamilton has another big moment and will start tomorrow's race from 10th. In the Mercedes, which has looked incredible all weekend, Lewis Hamilton, not able to get a fast lap out of it, will start in 10th place. 9th is Nico Hülkenberg. 8th, Oscar Piastri. Now, a lot of this weekend, Piastri has looked the quicker of the two McLarens, But when it mattered here in Q3, he wasn't able to produce a good lap, so that was 8 for him. Yuki Tsunoda is in 7th. Lando Norris only manages 6th place. Max Verstappen in 5th, which I was very surprised at. I was not expecting him to be that good. But, he pulled out a great lap here. Charles Leclerc in P4. Now, Leclerc had an awful Sector 1, but a fantastic recovery throughout Sector 2 and Sector 3 to get him up to that position. If it wasn't for that bad Sector 1, I think he could have been on the front row, if not challenging for pole position. But overall, I think Ferrari's long-run pace is still very strong. I still think he can be fighting for the win this time tomorrow. The star of qualifying, though, is in P3. It's Pierre Gasly. No one saw that coming. Podium last time out in Brazil, but everyone's like, oh yeah, well, it was the rain and all this kind of stuff, and, it was just different events happening all at once to bring on that. Gasly, P3 in qualifying. Insane result for them there. When you think back to where they were at the start of the year, I think in Bahrain, Alpine were easily the slowest car on the grid. To come here, be in 3rd, fantastic result. Hopefully you can turn it into some good points tomorrow. Carlos Sainz is on the front row. He's in P2. But pole position goes to George Russell. As I said, Mercedes have looked by far the quickest over single lap pace. Russell easily able to put it together to get that pole position. I don't think he can win it tomorrow. I don't think Mercedes' long run pace is there, especially with Sainz right behind him. But what this gives us is a super interesting race, because I think what we've got here is like so many stories within this top 10. So you've got the guys going for the win, which I think are your likes of Sainz, Leclerc, maybe Russell if that pace is there. But then there's the other story, of course, of the World Championship that can be decided this weekend. Verstappen currently ahead of Norris on the grid. If it finishes that way, Max Verstappen is your 2024 World Champion. In there as well, what's going to happen with Lewis Hamilton? Bad qualifying. Can he kind of turn it around? One of his worst race weekends ever last time out in Brazil. This weekend looked like it was turning around. Looked very quick in the practice sessions. Has had a bad qualifying, but what can he do in the race from there? There's so many big questions going into tomorrow's race. I think we're in for something quite special. Last year's race was really fun. Let's hope that wasn't like a one-off fluke. Let's hope that this track does give us some good racing, and I don't see why it shouldn't. Hopefully, the Ferraris will be able to race each other, which normally they are, so I don't see why they wouldn't be allowed to this time round. But I think it's advantage Ferrari for long-run pace. Russell needs to keep the lead into turn 1, because if he doesn't, I think it might be over for him from there. But yeah, Gasly as well, one to watch. Where's he going to finish? There's a lot of cars behind him that are a hell of a lot quicker than him, so how many points will he be able to get? Of course, street track, anything can happen, and what happens in Vegas stays on the telly, and we all watch it, and then I'll talk about it here as well. So that'll be tomorrow morning. I can't wait to see you all there. Until then, though, let me know what you thought of this qualifying session. Let me know what you think is going to happen tomorrow. Will Max Verstappen become world champion for the 4th time? We'll have to wait and see. Until then, have a good one. I'll see you later. Goodbye.